Hey everyone, back for another Tyranid Tactica video. I know this one's been a little bit overdue, and I apologize for taking such a long time for it to get out, as well as the big break between the previous Tyranid Tactica video and this one. However, I do think it's a blessing in disguise because we're looking at Warzone Octarius in the Leviathan supplement and everything that goes along in this book for the Tyranid. So this book has been very huge for us. Big changes that have greatly impacted how we build Tyranids. Especially in relation to Leviathan, and has breathed new life into the faction as we await our new Codex. Now, I say it's a blessing in disguise, being that with the recent release of the Crusher Stampede, as well as the new GT pack coming out, along with the point changes, this video is going to be a little bit more accurate to the current state of the faction and how they're faring with the new missions, as well as how Leviathan supplement and Octarius on a whole combines with the Crusher Stampede. So I do think it's a good thing that we waited a little bit. I know many probably want to see my take on everything, but alas, here we are. So it's all for the good, for the hive mind. So in this video, we're going to talk about the Synaptic links, and then we're going to move into the Leviathan supplement, and then we're going to quickly talk about the Appendix in this book as well. It's the Tyranid Blood of Bale book. Well, sorry, not Tyranid, Psychic Awakening. So it's just included in here, so it's less books you have to carry around. There's one or two minor changes, nothing major, but just give you an idea what is included in this book. So if you're new to Tyranids and you're looking to get the book, you at least know what's inside and what exactly you have to get in terms of books and everything. So the first section we're going to jump into is Synaptic links. We're going to go through each of the Synaptic links. I'm going to explain how the mechanic works with Tyranids. So again, if you're new, it'll give you a good understanding of how it works and maybe some ideas and placement and everything with your models and how you could perform effective linking. And then we'll cover each of the links in detail. So before we dive into the specifics for each unit with the Synaptic links, we're going to talk about what they are and how they function in the army. So Synaptic links are available for all hive fleets, so you don't need to be Leviathan, which is a nice thing. So it gives a little bit of life into some of the other hive fleets. Maybe you're a Behemoth player or Kronos. It gives you a little bit in this book as well. So if you're not a Leviathan player, there's still lots in the book for you. So Synaptic links, it is pretty much just exactly as it sounds. The Synaptic creatures provide a link to the hive mind and grant special bonuses to either themselves or other hive mind creatures as well. So pretty much all Synapse units get a Synaptic link. I think, if I recall, the only one that doesn't have a link would be the Forge World Malmthrow, but maybe we'll see that in the new Codex. It's hard to say. So that's essentially what the links are. They cost 15 points per link for each unit, so we'll just cover that right up front. So not too expensive, a nice cheap upgrade to greatly improve how your force functions. Now, there are some limitations. Depending on the battle size you're using, there's a limit of Synaptic links that you're allowed to use. So I emphasize the allowed, being that you could take technically 6 Synaptic links, but depending on the battle size, you can only use so many per turn. So in the command phase is when the Synaptic link is declared for a unit. So if you're playing Combat Patrol, you can only use 1 link per battle round. Then you can use 2 in Incursion, 3 for Strike Force, and 4 for Onslaught. So that is the one limitation with it. Again, you could bring some extra Synaptic links for redundancy if you can spare the points in your list. I haven't personally done this myself. Actually, I don't even think I've done it in more light builds and anything like that. So generally speaking, I kind of bring as many links as I'm allowed to use, just to save a little bit on points. Now I do you can bring the same link over and over. For example, let's say we have 2 units of warriors here. These are representing 2 units of warriors. You could take their Synaptic link, which is Bioweapon Bond, on 1 unit, as well as purchase it on another one. And you can use both of them. You're not limited to using, say, 1 bioweapon link for the entire army per turn. It's a maximum of 3. So I could use his link, and then let's say the Maleceptor's link, but then I couldn't use the Broodlord and the Hive Tyrant's link. So that's the limitations with the Synaptic links, and I hope that's nice and clear and easy to understand. Next, I'm going to take an overhead shot and then do a little voiceover here. I'm just going to do a photo, and then it'll give you a better idea over top how this looks. All right, everyone, I know I said I was going to do an overhead picture here, but I jangled up the old tripod here just to get a nice overhead view, and I think this will be a better explanation because I can more visually show things. So looking here, let's pretend this is our battlefield. We have 3 Synaptic links on the table. we have the Brood Lord here with his Mastery of Shadows. We have the Hive Tyrant with his ability to add some extra Paladin movement for his link, and then we have the Warriors here with Bioweapon Bond, which gives +1 to hit. Now, as I explained before, the Synaptic links work by, in the command phase, selecting a unit within range, 12 inches, and now, as well, I should mention, this is a hard 12-inch aura that they have for this. So Swarm Lord with its 18-inch synapse range, it's still 12 for him. So that's one thing just to clarify, and adding extra synapse range doesn't come into play for the Synaptic links. So looking at this here, you can chain along to achieve certain effects that we'd want to hit with other units. So if we take a look here, the Bioweapon Bond for the Warriors, which I'll explain in more detail earlier, very quickly, it's just, well, it is +1 to hit. So looking at the table here, the prime candidate would be the Hive Guard, because you would want them to get the +1 to hit as compared to some Termagants sitting right here. So now the way this link could go across is the Warriors here have to be within 12 inches of the Hive Guard. So we'll take the measuring tape here, we'll check. So the Warriors are within 12 inches of another Synapse creature, the Hive Tyrant, who can then pass along the link over this way. So that is well within 12 inches, as you can see here, which allows the Hive Guard to receive the Synaptic link effect from the Warriors. So that chains across, providing the +1 to hit over this way. Now let's say we have the Brood Lord with his Mastery of Shadows. So you can only have one link on a unit per turn. So I can't add any other links to the Hive Guard this turn. So they're locked in. So I can't toss anything else onto them. So now I have the Master of the Shadows with the Brood Lord, which gives light cover as well as -1 to hit on non-monsters. So if we take a look here at the Brood Lord, it's a 12-inch range. We'll check and see. Okay, I want this to hit the Warriors, we'll say, because they're holding my objective over here. However, I am not in range here, so I can't actually move over the Synaptic link. So the bubble from here to here only extends to about there. So if my Brood Lord was a little bit closer, I would be able to toss that effect over that way. Again, as I've said a few times, but just to remind, this happens during the command phase, so you can't do any moving in your turn to get to have links go off. However, you want to set up for the next turn. So keeping that in mind, if you have units in reserve that are coming in, you won't be able to get your Synaptic links off on them. Now, if we add it into the mix here, let's just say we'll grab another Synapse creature right over here, the Malceptor. So if we toss him right in here, again, positioning whatever Synapse creatures you have, we can now see that he is well within the 12. And boom, he can link over to the Warriors, or perhaps, say, to the Gaunts to give them some cover to move up to steal an objective. So I hope that's a nice, clear explanation and visual representation of how the links work and how you can chain. So hopefully if you're new to the book here, if you've been playing Tyranids, maybe you could skip this section, or you could watch it just because it's very cool looking. You can see our objective markers, 3d6 Wargaming, link in the video description below. Support the channel. And yeah, so that's how the links function. Now we're going to move into actually talking about what each link is, some of the uses and potential drawbacks compared to other links. So give you an idea of how you can include these links effectively in your list when you're building. All right, folks, so now that we've covered how the links work and how the functions and limitations, we're going to talk about each link in detail and take a look at the first guy here, which is the good old Brood Lord. So the Brood Lord's link is called Mastery of Shadows. And what this does is it gives you light cover and heavy cover, which is very nice. And then it also, each time a ranged attack is made against the unit that is affected by this link, excluding monsters, he also gets dense cover. So very effective in keeping certain units alive. It's a good combo with Gene Stealers. Now the one thing with this link, I'm just going to talk about the drawback very quickly, is a lot of the units that you want to affect with it are prime candidates for some other links that we'll talk about in the future. And the other drawback as well is that if you don't get first turn, like this is a link you want early on in the game, you need your command phase to actually activate the link. So if you don't get first turn, you don't really get to use this link on your prime unit that you want to avoid getting shot apart. So that's the only limitation with this one. It's a good combination I found with some of the monsters, even though the dense cover, they don't get to benefit from it. But getting other things such as light cover and then heavy cover added onto the unit as well is quite handy. So getting the 2-up save on, let's say, a Harridan, just because I have one on and having a 2-up save Harridan is fantastic. And then they have the -1 hit built in, or even let's say on the Dimmacairn as well. So Dimmacairn, that's probably one of the prime links that you would like to get onto them. In saying that there is other links that a lot of units kind of like are vying for. When you're building your list, I do want to mention that you kind of build around the links per se. So you have prime targets for the link. So if you are taking the Mastery of Shadows, make sure you think about, okay, who is this link going to go on? Who are the other links going to go on? So build around that. I wouldn't recommend just taking it thinking like, oh, maybe I'll just throw it here, maybe I'll throw it there. So keep that in mind when using the link, and that'll negate the negatives that I mentioned earlier, just so that way you get the most out of your Synaptic link with the Brute Lord. Okay, so now let's take a look at the Hive Tyrant in his Synaptic link. I will say, out of all the links in the Octarius book, this is probably my least favorite. I think the least effective on the table. It's hard to say, again, depending on how you're building the list and just how the link can come into play. It's called Malicious Direction, and each time a model in the unit makes a pylon move, it can move an additional 3 inches, up to a maximum of 6. So it is quite handy, say, on a unit of Gene Stealers, ensuring that they all get in and get to slam their attacks forward, or even on a bigger monster, like, again, going back, I always go to the Dimmacairn, because it's just such a key one that can hit into the enemy line so hard, or potentially just an Assassin Tyrant, which is something we'll talk about later. Getting that extra pylon will allow you to tag up a few extra things, potentially. So in the case of the Dimmacairn, you make a charge in, stay back a little bit, make a 6-inch pylon move, and maybe you can tag 2 things, and again, get that chest attack going off on the Dimmacairn. But again, in relation to some of the other links and combinations that come out of this book, I think this is one of the lesser taken ones. For me personally, again, as I mentioned with the Brood Lord just a few moments ago, it all comes down to how you're building a list, and each link needs to have a prime target and an effective plan drawn out for links. So don't just take links. I'm going to say this probably another few times. Don't just take links for the sake of it. Make sure you have a plan on how you're going to enact the link and play it out. So again, one idea could be tossing onto a Dimmacairn, allowing you to get that extra pylon, tag some units, and get that chest attack going off. Or even for if Gene Stealers, getting that extra pylon could be huge, ensuring that they land in and get to hit with all their attacks before they either die or don't get a chance to run away. So that's the Hive Tyrant, and that's my thoughts on this guy personally. All right, now time for the Malceptor. This one has been a huge win for this model for me. I've had a Malceptor for quite a while now. This was before Octarius arrived, and he sat at my painting table for probably 8 months. I just never had any desire to really get him done. There didn't seem a ton of use for the guy. But now with Octarius and these Synaptic links, my opinion on the Malceptor has done a complete 180. I'm very happy with him. His Synaptic link is called Focal Essence, and I'll talk about why I think it's such a big deal. So Focal Essence, unmodified wound roll of 6, improves the armor penetration of the attack by 1, improves it by adding another -1. And then also it allows you to reroll the damage roll. So right up front, I'm sure you've guessed it, I'm sure you've seen the combo, Hive Guard are a prime target for this Synaptic link. You'll see in a lot of my lists, I love including a Malceptor just to ensure that the Hive Guard are just slapping out the maximum amount of damage possible, especially with their shooting twice. And getting a little extra AP here and there is also just gravy for it. So, and then also getting the Malceptor able to do some extra psychic powers for protection with his +1 to cast is always handy, having that guaranteed guide or almost guaranteed psychic power going off, just kind of handy in that regard. And he's not too bad in melee. I mean, he's not great, but for sitting by the Hive Guard, babysitting them, he's not nothing to snuff at. We'll say that at least. So I think this link is very effective. You can also use it on things like any form of D6 damage attacks. I mean, you can put it on a Rupture, Tyranid maybe to make that a little bit more effective, or even an Acid Spray one would be a great combination. However, I think the prime winner for this link would be the Hive Guard. They definitely would see the most use, most to gain from getting the Focal Essence. So very happy with that. Malceptor has made it into a ton of my list. It is a very cool model. I'm very happy that I finally got it painted up, and really looking forward to see what happens with him in our next Codex. But for now, he'll definitely see a lot of play time and a great many of my lists still, as long as Hive Guard remain relevant. Or who knows, maybe I'll try comboing him with something else, we'll see. But overall, I think this is a great link to include. Next up, we got the good old Turvagon. So the Turvagon gains a nice little boost with the Octarius supplement, but focusing on the link specifically, it is quite a handy link, though it comes at quite a price, which I'll talk about in a moment. So its Synaptic link is Weaponized Gestation. So each time a model in this unit makes a ranged attack, you can reroll an unmodified wound roll of 1 or 2. So very handy with a combination of Devil Gaunts. I think that's the biggest winner here, being that they have just such a high volume of shots to put out, and then being able to reroll 1s and 2s is huge, on top of already getting to reroll some hit rolls in there as well. So very good combo with that. Now, when I said just a moment ago about the high price tag, the Tervigon still, for what it does, I don't know if it's justified. I really love this model. I played back in 6th edition, so the days of the Tervigon were wondrous for me. I have fond memories of the Tervigon, so I'm eagerly waiting a point where it's worth its points. But right now, I still don't think, for the points investment for what the Tervigon brings, I think there is better options. However, if you are set on bringing one, as it is a pretty decent link, I would recommend comboing it with Devil Gaunts, or even potentially Hive Guard if you don't have a Malceptor, or you have another target for the Warrior link, which we'll talk about shortly. Having this on the Hive Guard is also going to really maximize their damage, because generally speaking, Hive Guard are wounding typically on 3s or 4s anyway, so getting a little bit of extra damage in there is quite handy. So there you have it with the Tervigon. He's improving. I'm so eager for just to get a little bit better, but we'll see what happens again in the next Codex. But for now, a little bit more value to the unit, and taking it isn't a total bust. So next up, we have the Neurothrope. The Neurothrope's Synaptic link is called Psychic Creep. This is an aura. So while a unit is affected by this aura, enemy units within 6 inches subtract 1 from the leadership, as well as add 1 to their combat attrition test. Or sorry, subtract 1. That's the right way to do it, for their combat attrition test. So this link, I think, is very situational. Like the Hive Tyrant one, it's a link that I don't see taken an overly lot. I've never used it personally. I think it is just too situational to guarantee it being effective. If you do hit a unit with the Synaptic link and they get to their key target, and let's say you really need, it's a unit that you need to have models flee, your opponent could spend the 2 CP and then just pass it. And depending on your meta too, I find a lot of armies have smaller size units, so running away isn't always a guarantee, especially against smaller units or Marines. So yeah, it's just something to think about. As compared to the other links, I don't think this is one that I will take a whole lot. Maybe I'll try it out one day to see how it is, but it's the only one on here along with the Hive Tyrant that I just haven't used yet, and I don't think it's going to make the cut as compared to the benefits of the other Synaptic links. And a lot of the other Synaptic links are included on units that are generally speaking going to be in the majority of a lot of Tyranid lists anyway. So unfortunately, the Neurothrope isn't one of the ones that shines when it comes to the Synaptic links. Then we have the Trigon Prime. So this guy, a bit of a winner here. So a very solid link overall. It's called Feed. So when affected by this link, a unit is able to shoot and declare charge when they have fallen back. So this is a big one, especially if you're running Leviathan and getting all the nice buffs from the book that we'll talk about a little later. This allows you to not be tied up in combat and get your key units out of melee and back to where they need to be. So one time personally that I've had this actually come quite in handy is I had an enemy unit get in range of my Hive Guard and tie them up, and I was able to actually dump this link back to the Hive Guard through some chaining with Synapse units, and they were actually to step back into combat and shoot the unit that they were charged, and I had something else go and tie up the big thing that came in to try and mess up the Hive Guard's day. So very key Synaptic link. The one disadvantage that I'm going to say with the Trigon Prime is that it does need to be on the table. So if you're tunneling up, I know it's not always the best thing because these guys are a little squishy. There are some ways around that we'll talk about a little bit later to make them a lot more durable. You can't use your Synaptic link because it has to go off in the command phase. So if it comes tunneling up, you won't get to use it. So if it's tunneling, it won't show up till turn 2 anyway. So you're not getting this link active until turn 3. So I do think to get the most out of this, you do need to keep them on the table, which is a bit risky because if you're not taking some of the combinations that we're going to talk about later, such as one of the relics from the Leviathan supplement, the Trigon Prime can get blown off the table quite easily. But again, very powerful link, and if you're taking it, I do think it'll keep you protected and as well have you getting some melee monsters getting to back up, shoot, or just get away from something that's tying them up. So solid link overall. Next up, we have the Tyranid Prime. So this little guy, his link is called Unchecked Ferocity. So each time a melee attack is made by a model in this unit, an unmodified hit roll of a 6 automatically wounds the target. So this link is quite handy. I've used it a little bit now. I found it's most effective on Gene Stealers. They have an absurd amount of attacks to begin with. So getting in there and against something with higher toughness too, just ensuring that the wounds get through, especially on the acid moths, I find that is where they shine to really get through and get those high AP rolls going through against the opponent. So quite effective on Gene Stealers. There are some other uses that I think could come out. Again, like slapping that onto like a Dimicairn or like a Trigon, a souped up Trigon Prime or something like that. It could work out, but it's hard to say because there's some other links that could kind of shine over that. But the Tyranid Prime as well doesn't bring a lot to the table himself, so he is our cheapest HQ option, which is very nice if you're trying to save some points in that slot. But again, it's a matter of, do you need an effective HQ in there? Because if you're looking for something that has a little bit of balance in that regard, unfortunately the Tyranid Prime itself, it doesn't do much there. But again, going back to my previous statement of, if you're taking this link, there has to be a reason. So if you're taking a link, make sure there's a reason why you're taking the link. So you have a unit that obviously you want to target with the Unchecked Ferocity. So overall, I do think it's a decent one. I've had a lot of success with it, especially with my Gene Stealers, like I said. So not a bad one. I do like it. And here we go, Tyranid Warriors. So their Synaptic link is called Bioweapon Bond. Each time an attack is made by a model in this unit, add 1 to the attack roll. So this isn't just shooting, it's also melee. So I really think that these guys are the biggest winner when it comes to the Synaptic link. Warriors on a whole have been growing in popularity and effectiveness as the game has progressed in 9th edition. So Warriors are very popular. I'm very, very happy with how my Warriors have performed on the table, and now getting this link is just absolute gravy. So like the prime candidate definitely is the Hive Guard. If you can get the link off on them, I use it with a ton of success on Barbed Hero, or again, even slapping that onto like a Dimicairn flying in there just to really ensure that you do as much damage as possible. Or even if you just bring a big shooty unit of Warriors, which isn't that bad for holding objectives. It's a lot of bodies to choose through, and just getting that +1 to hit makes a big deal. So you can get them with some other buffs hitting on 2s like it's nothing. So it may just make the points worth it for bringing a big warrior blob. So fantastic link. I bring a lot of times minimum sized unit of warriors, and then just slap that link onto them. They're an OPSEC unit, plus then in the Leviathan supplement, they're getting the 6-up Feel No Pain, and then just also a Synapse unit that can chain along other links. So definitely, I think the biggest winner of all the links is certainly the Bioweapon Bond. There's no real drawback except for, I wish you could just do more than 3 so not really a drawback, but you get what I mean. So Warriors, definitely a very solid one. If you're including Warriors, definitely I highly recommend including Bioweapon Bond, because it just has so many uses. I know I've said before that you need prime linked target, but with getting +1 to hit for shooting and melee, there's no unit that can't benefit from that with Tyranids. So great link. I'm very happy for my little warriors. All right, everyone. So next up is the Humble Zoanthropes. The Synaptic link for these guys is called Psychic Channeling. So each time a psychic test is taken for this unit, roll 1 additional d6 and discard 1 of the dice. So right up front, it heavily benefits a max unit of Zoanthropes, really ensuring they get off their super smite. I do think if you are taking Zoanthropes, it's a unit that you have to go all in on. You can check out my Tyranid Tactica video focusing on Zoanthropes for more information on how to run them if you're curious. And yeah, I think if you're taking the Zoanthropes, the link is definitely worth investing in, because you're already investing a lot of points into a full unit if you're going that route, and you may as well just maximize the amount of damage as well. The link is also really great for ensuring that you're getting psychic actions off. You can also chain it across to really ensure that you're getting your actions completed, getting that extra dice, as well as combo it with one of the relics that we're going to talk about a little bit later that helps prevent powers from being undenied. So very effective there. Again, I think it's one link that I think you go all in with the Zoanthropes, and you take that and then you slap mortal wounds everywhere. So very effective. As compared to other links, I don't think you're going to take a minimum size Zoanthrope unit and grab this link. It's not a combination I don't think you'll see too often, because then the Zoanthrope themselves aren't doing a whole lot on the table for the points you're spending. That's just my opinion on it. I'm definitely going to run these guys soon. It's been a while since I've ran them, especially with this link too. So maybe in my next bat wrap, we're just going to see these guys. I'll slap that link on and we'll see that the experience goes. So that's it for Synaptic links. We're going to move into the next part of this Tactica video and talk about Codex supplement Leviathan. So let's dive into that. All right, folks, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of the Octarius book, which is Codex supplement Leviathan. So we're going to cover all the sections in the book here for the supplement, which is the warlord traits, relics, as well as the stratagems. So there's a good host of stratagems there to choose from. Whole bunch that really flesh out the Tyranids on a whole and open up a great many different styles of play. So before we do that, I'm just going to quickly talk about the big highlights. So the biggest thing with this in terms of buffs is, like I said, it just opens up the doors for so many different combinations. Takes quite a few units that were previously, we'll say, super useless and bring them up to basically the point of being useful. And we'll talk about them as we go through, as well as enhancing a lot of the units that are very good already, and thus giving us a little bit more punch. With the combination of Crusher Stampede as well, Codex Leviathan, it's a big deal. There's so many different combinations using the Crusher Stampede Army of Renown, and I'll mention a few of the combinations as we move through the different relics, warlord traits, and of course stratagems as well. Now the big drawback I'm just going to mention too with this book is that obviously it's Codex supplement Leviathan, so all of these amazing things are only available to Leviathan. So if you're a hardcore Behemoth, Kraken, or Kronos, or if you're a bold Hydra player, there's not a whole lot in here that you'll get a lot of use of, unfortunately. However, it does point at a few good things that are going to be coming your way when the Codex comes around. Hopefully this is going to be a lot of different things that are kind of shown across the board for Tyranids, or indications of other relics and stratagems that might open up for other high fleets, or maybe they'll get their own supplements, so it's hard to say. So first things first, let's jump in and talk about the 3 warlord traits in this book. All right, so now let's just quickly talk about a couple combinations and useful things that can be put together for the warlord section here. So we're going to talk about stratagems a little bit later, but there's one that directly comes into play when talking about the warlord traits, and that is a unique one to Leviathan called Alpha Beast. So using this stratagem, it's 1 CP, it lets your warlord generate an additional warlord trait from the Leviathan table. So this one is very effective because the Leviathan warlord traits on a whole, all 3 are, well, 2 out of the 3 are super duper useful. The other one is kind of situational. Not a huge fan, but we'll talk about that once we get there. But it opens the door for things such as, like with Crusher Stampede, it allows you to take a Crusher Stampede warlord trait and also one of the awesome Leviathan ones too. So Alpha Beast is huge, bringing out a lot of different combinations here. The other thing too is just talk about Alpha Beast in Progeny of the Hive Mind. So a lot of people are wondering, I know when this first dropped out, maybe if you're new to Tyranids you're wondering as well, about adaptive physiologies and warlord traits here in the Leviathan supplement. So you can still take advantage of the adaptive physiologies plus all the goodness that comes in the Leviathan supplement using Progeny of the Hive Mind, which is a 1 CP strat that was available in the Blood of Bale book, but is now here in the Appendix section of the Octarius book. And that allows you just to upgrade 1 unit with an adaptive physiology. So there's a few different combinations you can still use. So you could take your warlord trait and use the Progeny to get a warlord trait and an adaptive physiology. Or you can also use Alpha Beast to have 2 warlord traits and still have a physiology. Now, alternatively, you can go the route of using Progeny of the Hive Mind and also exchanging your initial warlord trait to get 2 adaptive physiologies, and then using Alpha Beast to generate a warlord trait. So you can still take advantage of the warlord traits and also get some physiologies as well. I tend to go the route of having 2 warlord traits and 1 physiology. I find that's kind of the best way to go, at least in my experience and the matches that I've played, but you definitely can find the combination that best suits your own high fleet and as well as the matches that you find yourself playing. So let's jump into the first warlord trait, which is Swarm Leader. All right, so the first warlord trait is called Swarm Leader. So this one is probably the most powerful. Well, it's kind of tied with the next one, but on a whole, I think this one is insanely effective, especially when tossed on with Hive Guard. So Swarm Leader allows you in your command phase to select 1 friendly Leviathan Infantry, Leviathan Beast, or Leviathan Swarm unit within 9 inches of the Warlord until the start of the next command phase. Each time a model in that unit makes an attack, you can re-roll the hit roll. So again, applying to shooting as well as melee. So like I said, comboed with Hive Guard, it lets them put out a ton of damage and still lets them take advantage of the awesome Synaptic links we just covered in the previous section as well. So you can combo things like Focal Essence from the Mouth Scepter on them, and then get the rerolls here, so you're rerolling hits, and you're also getting to reroll the damage rolls in there as well. Or you can even just go the route of getting +1 to hit and rerolling just to ensure all the hits go through, or whatever fills your boots there. So the 3 units I'm showing you here are definitely some of the prime candidates when it comes to the Swarm Leader Warlord trait, being that generally you want a Warlord that's going to be sitting in the backfield, kind of handing this Warlord trait out as you go, whereas Flying Hive Tyrants, and again, Turbigon's not taken quite as often. It is a pretty decent candidate, but a Flying Hive Tyrant tends to launch forward and leave the backfield where it can hand out this buff, because again, it's only for infantry, beast, or swarm models. So I found one of these 3 guys to be the best placement for Swarm Leader. You can definitely use it on a Flyant or a Walking Tyrant, like I said, or a Turbigon, or heck, even a Trigon Prime. But again, you want to take these abilities and plan them out as best you can with your Hive fleet that you have on the table, and maximize the effectiveness with it. So that's the first Warlord trait. Again, very powerful, adds so much hitting power to units like Hive Guard, fully kitted out warriors, or even Gene Stealers if you want to go that route and just slam an absurd amount of attacks into the enemy. So let's jump into the next Warlord trait, which is Strategic Adaption. All right, so now let's talk about Strategic Adaption. So in my opinion, I think this is the strongest Warlord trait in the book. As I just mentioned, talking about Swarm Leader, it's kind of tied for that one in terms of effectiveness, but Strategic Adaption, just opens up so many options for us. So this Warlord trait, after both players have deployed their armies, but before the first battle round begins, select up to 2 Leviathan units from your army that are in your deployment zone and redeploy them. And you can't do the Warlord though. If the mission uses the Strategic Reserves rules, see the Warhammer book for that, blah, blah, blah. Any of these units can be placed into Strategic Reserve without having to spend any additional CP, regardless of how many units are already in Strategic Reserve. And if both players have abilities to do something like this, then you just roll off, and then the winner chooses who redeploys their units first. So this one, as you can see here, I got a Gene Stealer, a Dimikarian, and Hive Guard out here, and the reason being is because this Warlord trait just benefits units like this so much. In my experience thus far, units like this, a lot of times people will counter deploy against them, moving things far away from, say, the Dimikarian, or especially the Hive Guard. I found a lot of times I have 1 or 2 effective places to place the Hive Guard, and the enemy will place units so just out of the range or on the opposite end of the board. And the redeploy allows me to move them into a good position, or if I don't get first turn, and that's the other thing that's huge with this, you redeploy after you find out if you're going first or not. So on the flip side of the coin here, we have, say, that the Gene Stealers or Dimikarian. Sometimes I'll deploy them very aggressively right off the start. And then if I don't get first turn, I can pull them back into a more of a defensive position, or vice versa. If I have them back far just to kind of mess with the opponent in terms of them knowing what's going to come forward, I can deploy them up against the line right away and just launch them right up at the enemy. So the other thing as well, the Strategic Reserve portion of the Warlord trait, I don't put a lot of things into Strategic Reserves. However, there is a combo that you can use. There's a Leviathan stratagem that we'll talk about in a bit that allows you to treat the unit coming in from Strategic Reserves as if it was turn 3 on turn 2. So you could get things a little bit more positioned. However, I can't see myself really doing that too often. I find I like the Alpha Strike, or I like just getting my units into more of a defensive position and not losing out on a turn of offensive movement or grabbing objectives. But that's just me personally in my games and my play style. That suits me as well. So yeah, so on a whole, just it's amazingly effective. It can really mess with your opponent in them determining where they're going to place things, or just what they should do about certain units on the table, because the ability to redeploy, it's huge, especially getting to do 2 of them as well. So incredibly effective. I include this and Swarm Leader are included in basically all of my lists. It opens so many options again. It's just fantastic. So yeah, very, very happy about this one. I highly recommend it. If you're new to Tyranids and you're just watching this and learning about the Warlord traits here, definitely consider this one. It's a big game changer. both mentally and for your opponent, kind of messes with them in that regard. So yeah, very happy about that. Now let's move into talk about Gestalt Commander. All right, so the third and final Warlord trait from the Leviathan supplement. In my opinion, this is definitely the weakest of the three. I haven't used it myself. Just the other two are so good compared to this one, but I'm still going to cover it anyway and talk about some potential uses and combinations. So this Warlord trait, at the start of each battle round, select one Warlord trait from the High Fleet Warlord traits. It's from the Tyranid Codex. For the Warlord, you can't do perfectly adapted or any Warlord trait that a model in your army already has. Till the end of the battle, this Warlord has the selected Warlord trait and replace all instances of High Fleet's keyword on that Warlord trait with Leviathan. So it's kind of cool that you can swap between Warlord traits. To be honest, the core Codex Warlord traits, they're not that great in my opinion. They just lack so much. Before the Leviathan supplement, almost every list I had 2 adaptive physiologies, or at least just 1 adaptive physiology if I want to see a CP on Progeny. Yeah, there's a few cool combinations. Like there's one Warlord trait that allows your Warlord to -1 off the damage roll after taking a wound. So you can do some kind of meme stuff with a Crusher Stampede list and get like a Flyrant that after he takes a wound is -2 damage, because I don't think there's a cap on that. I looked, I'm pretty sure there's not, that you can't be capped at -1. But anyway, it's a fun little thing you could do, I guess, to make a Tyrant, and then you could even toss on Biomorphic Carapace, which is a relic that we're going to talk about here very soon, to make a Flyrant super duper hard to kill. But outside of that, many of the Warlord traits from the Tyranid book happen at the start of the battle, so I think there's 3 of them, if I recall right, that happened at the beginning of the battle, so you wouldn't even be able to use them, switching between the Warlord traits. So yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's pretty meh. So give it a go though if you're interested, like I said, for the meme content. But if you're looking for effectiveness and value out of your Warlord, definitely consider Swarm Leader and Strategic Adaptation over Gestalt Commander. So that's it for the Warlord section. We're going to move in and talk about the relics and some uses that they have on the table, and give you some ideas of some combos and the best way to use these unique Leviathan relics. All right, so let's talk relics in the book. So the very first one is the Biomorphic Carapace. So this is a very solid relic. The guy front and center, the Trigon Prime, he's a big winner here for this one. That relic alone, well, Crusher Stampede and that relic have made the Trigon Prime an absolute beast stick. There's a little combination I'll talk about at the end of the section on the relic. But the Biomorphic Carapace, each time an attack is made against the bearer, subtract 1 from that attack's wound roll. So this is a big one that adds a ton of survivability into a guy like the Trigon Prime, or even a Flying Hive Tyrant. Or if you really want to give the Turbogun a go, I highly recommend this, as it's going to help keep the Turbogun alive, and for that high point cost, is going to at least help increase his output on the table. So yeah, so Biomorphic Carapace, very, very handy to have. My favorite combo thus far with it has been on the Trigon Prime in Crusher Stampede. So Crusher Stampede, if you're not aware, that's an Army of Renown. I think I mentioned at the start of this video, if I recall. And I'm going to do a separate Tactica video on that. But essentially what it is it gives, it replaces the High Fleet traits. So you don't get like the Leviathan 6-up heal on pain when within Synapse range, or 6 inches of Synapse creature. Instead, monsters get -1 damage and a 5-up invul, and just normal units, or infantry I should say, because swarms aren't allowed, to get a 5-up invul as well. And your monsters also count as the number of remaining wounds. When holding an objective, that's how much it's worth. So if we have a full wound Tyrant here, that counts as 12 models technically on there. So you can do some cool combinations, like there's a stratagem with Leviathan that we'll get into that allows a unit to become OBSEC. So you could have an OBSEC Trigon Prime as well. So, but not to get too off topic here, but the combination of Crusher Stampede, Biomorphic Carapace on a Trigon Prime is huge. Then tossing Murderous Size on. It's an absurd amount of attacks that they can put out, and it's insanely hard to kill. With a 5-up invul, with the potential to get a 4-up, and Crusher Stampede with a Psychic Power, and being -1 to damage and -1 to the wound roll, it's tough to take this guy out. He's finely durable and doesn't just fold like a wet piece of paper. But now he's I love it. So that's been my biggest star with the biomorphic carapace. You could also stick it on other units too, like say a Broodlord or something. But in my opinion, these three right here are the prime candidates for the biomorphic carapace. All right, so the next relic on the list is the Void Crown. So this is only for a Psyker model only. So the way this works is the bearer knows one additional power from the Hive Mind discipline. And if the bearer attempts to use a psychic action in your psychic phase, it can still attempt to manifest one psychic power during that phase. And each time a psychic test is made for the bearer on an unmodified result of 9+, that psychic power or action cannot be denied. So I mentioned this earlier when we were talking about the Zoanthropes and the Synaptic link. You can open up some huge combinations here, getting to roll 3d6, and if you get that 9+, your power is undeniable. So again, doing super smites with this little fella here could be huge, as well as just ensuring that you're going to get your psychic actions off guaranteed. So this opens up things like with Warp Ritual, or whatever it's called for the new 2022 book. I can't remember the name, but it's the same. It's Warp Ritual. It opens up some opportunities for that and other psychic actions to be undeniable, as well as still getting to fire off some psychic powers as well. So not having to commit your full psychic abilities just to the action. So very, very useful there. Again, as I mentioned earlier in this when we talked about the Synaptic links, if you're taking this relic, you obviously need to have a plan in mind. You need to have a plan for your secondary. So don't just take this relic just for the heck of it. If you're doing it, plan on using some psychic secondaries and make the most of it. So very handy relic. I think it's awesome. Very cool. It's like the Resonance Barb. Like it's nice to have a little psyker option to really buff these guys, and again, open up different opportunities for objectives as well, and really hone out how you're building the list. So definitely a solid relic to add to our options. Another little side note just to add to for a nice combination is looking at Crusher Stampede as well. When you take a psychic power from there, you are locked into using that discipline for your standard psychic power. So looking at the Broodlord, if he was to go from the, we'll go to the Tyrant here. So if he has 2 psychic powers, so if he was to take any off the Crusher Stampede list, I think it's called the Mass Convergence Discipline, he would have to take both of his powers from there. However, taking the Void Crown allows him to know one additional power from the Hive Mind discipline. So he's not just locked into the Crusher Stampede. So that opens the door to Catalyst, Paroxysm, or even Psychic Scream if you wanted to be a bit more offensive. So nice little combo there. So it opens up a door so you're not fully locked in to just the Mass Convergence discipline. So let's just say that we pulled these 2 out from here, and that's your only Psyker, the Hive Tyrant. Slapping the Void Crown on gives you a little extra hitting power with him as well. Next up is the Synaptic Hive Blade. So right up front, I know this is Swarmlord. I don't have my Bone Swords magnetized yet for my Flying Hive Tyrant, but that's also a little funny because when they teased the Synaptic Hive Blades, Warhammer community, when the information was coming from Octarius, they showed the Swarmlord, so everyone's like, oh no, Swarmlord's gonna get these blades, but he can't. So we'll just focus on the blades. Anyway, the Synaptic Hive Blades, a model with Bone Swords or Monstrous Bone Swords only. Each time the bearer makes an melee attack with their Bone Swords or Monstrous Bone Swords, invulnerable saving throws cannot be made against that attack. So I haven't used them a ton. There's one build that you can use with the Flying Hive Tyrant and kind of make it an Assassin Tyrant. You can stick on Murderous Size onto him, as well as taking it in a Crusher Stampede list. So there's a way to get potentially an extra 2d3 attacks, then you're ignoring invuls, and then there's also a strat that you can add to the damage and the hit roll, and I think it's the AP as well. So just a whole bunch of different ways that you can just essentially create a Tyrant that's going to go in and just assassinate whatever target has an invul that you just want to get through. So it's a great way that, with Murderous Size, that you can have a Tyrant that's just going to go and absolutely dice up Terminator. So very cool relic. It's one that if you're taking it, you got to kind of go all in with the Tyrant and commit to him being the flying assassin. So I really like the sounds of this one. I haven't really ran it yet, but it's definitely on my list for a future game to make an assassin Tyrant to jump forward and slaughter some stuff. And the last relic from the book, it's definitely probably my favorite to come out, and it is Adaptive Neural Lobe. So while the bearer is on the battlefield, each time your opponent spends a command point to use a stratagem, you can roll a d6. On a 5+, you gain 1 command point. Now with the rules in the core rules, you can only gain 1 extra CP this way per battle round, but still it's a great way just to ensure that you're bringing some CP back. So in things like Crusher Stampede, which is, in my experience, is very CP heavy, or if you're investing into things like Alpha Beast, extra relics, or Progeny the Hive Mind, generally speaking, you're going to be starting with 9 to 10 CP right there. So having the adaptive neural lobe is going to help keep the CP flowing and just kind of keep you up on your opponent there, and allow you like things like Hive Guard just to continuously double tap, or if you need Pathogenic Slime or things like that, it's always just going to ensure that you have the available resource to do that without digging too much into your CP that might be needed for different phases in the game. So I'm showing the Brood Lord and the Neurothrope here, generally speaking, because with Adaptive Neurolobe, you need the model to be on the table, obviously, and alive. So these are 2 that I take, and I guess Tyranid Prime should kind of be in there. These 3 again, take that, and you want them to stay alive, kind of chill at the back, and yeah, just rack in the extra CP for you. So very awesome. Definitely my favorite. I think that's it's hard to say. Biomorphic Carapace is excellent. So is Void Crown. They all have great uses. So there's not a relic here that I would say is useless or kind of like eh. So I'm very happy with on a whole. It opens up again all kinds of different options for how we're going to build lists. So fantastic. So let's move into stratagem. This is a big section that really expands upon how we play Tyranids and opens the door to a whole whack of new combinations. So very, very excited about these stratagems. Let's dive into each one. I'm not going to spend a crazy amount of time on each one because there is a fair amount. I think there is 11 or so new stratagems. So I'll talk about how they work. Generally speaking, the advantages with them and when is the best time to use them as well. Some of them are very self-explanatory, so won't go into crazy details, but there's a few that kind of when to use them is something to think about. So let's jump into that section now. So moving into talking about the different stratagems in the Leviathan supplement, what I'm going to do is actually go through each stratagem by phase instead of just the order that they're in the book. That way you can kind of follow along when each one would come into play on the table. So the first one is Alpha Leader Beast. I've been saying Alpha Beast. Alpha Leader Beast is the proper name for it. So again, we just got the Tyranid Prime here just to represent that he's one of the ideal candidates for the stratagem. So I'll read out exactly how it works here. It's 1 CP to use. So use the stratagem before the battle when mustering your army. After nominating a Leviathan character model that is not a named character to be your warlord, you can generate one additional warlord trait for them from the Leviathan warlord traits table. And each warlord trait in your army must be unique. So if you randomly do it, you roll duplicate results, and you can only use this stratagem once. So as we've already covered in the warlord section, I'm not going to go into too much more detail with this one. Very effective to take advantage of the awesome warlord traits that are available to you in the Leviathan supplement. So great addition to the Tyranid force here. The only downside is it's locked in to Leviathan. So again, to the Behemoth and Kraken fans out there, hopefully your day will come when our Codex or your own supplement arrives. All right, so now we're moving into the command phase. So next up is Hive Mind Imperative. So this is a 1 CP stratagem. So use this stratagem in your command phase. Select 1 Leviathan unit from your army that is within 12 inches of a friendly Leviathan Synapse unit, and until the center of your next command phase, the unit gains the objective secured ability. If a model in that unit already has this ability, it counts as 1 additional model when determining control of an objective. If the unit you selected performs an action, it can shoot without failing that action. So right here you can see I got a Hive Tyrant and a Demicaran. So a prime target for that, getting Hive Mind Imperative off on it and then launching forward to clear off an objective or jump forward, kill something, and then overrun to leap onto an objective. That's an 18 count model in Crusher Stampede. Again, that combination is very effective, or it's just a giant monster sitting there as objective secured. So you can put that near something that isn't OBSEC, or force your opponent to pull some OBSEC units in a direction that they don't want to. So very effective stratagem. Again, the Crusher Stampede combo is amazing and definitely one that you should consider when planning out your attack at the start of the turn. Next up is Hyper Adaption. So this is also in the command phase. So it's 2 CP to use this. Use this stratagem in your command phase. Select 1 Leviathan unit from your army. Then select 1 Hive Fleet adaptation from the Tyranid Codex. Until the end of the turn, models in the unit have to select the Hive Fleet adaptation instead of the Synaptic, Imperative, High, Fleet Adaptation. So this gives up the 6-up Feel No Pain, and you can get things, and the reason I have Gene Stealers here is you can essentially just make them Kraken Gene Stealers for this phase, and for this turn. And then as well as you can still take advantage of the Leviathan stratagems available to you. So some good combinations there. I don't know if it's worth 2 CP, to be honest, and there's a lot of situations where you're just going to have a lot of units that are doing their job anyway that other high fleets could take advantage of. So for example, Chronos, generally speaking, the unit that you would want to be affected by Chronos would be like Exocrines or Hive Guard, and generally speaking, those are already going to be buffed either by just sitting still or getting the +1 to hit, say for the Hive Guard from the Bioweapon Bond Synaptic link with Warriors. So yeah, it's not a stratagem I have really used a lot. It's nice to have the option available, again, for things like Gene Stealers, but generally speaking, if you got Gene Stealers, you already got Swarm Lord there. But depending on how you build the list too, yeah, I don't know. And is 2 CP really worth getting an extra dice in there just for the advanced roll? I don't know. So it's nice to have in the back pocket. Don't get me wrong, I'm very happy to have it. But 2 CP I think is a high cost to pay for it, especially when the CP with the other stratagems available to us can be better used as well. So again, very cool to have. I'm not going to complain about it, but just want to give you an idea of some of the ups and downs of the stratagems here. All right, so now we're into the movement phase. The next stratagem is Questing Tendrils. So use the stratagem in your second movement phase. When you set up a Leviathan unit from your army that is derived from strategic reserves, you can set that unit up as if it was battle round 3. So again, as I mentioned earlier, some nice combinations with the Warlord trait, strategic adaptation, letting you put units into strategic reserve for free. I just got the Bard here out here to show you because it could be an option. You could have it come stomping in, get close to your enemy or on a key location and start shooting forward. Again, in my opinion, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not big on strategic reserves. I don't take advantage of it a whole lot. In my experience, I like having my units on the table early. I find Tyranids are fairly fast as it is, so I can get positioned anyway. And then I also don't like strategic reserves because a efficient opponent can screen them out and really deny you from coming in where you want. And then here you're spending a CP to try and come in into a location which your opponent could have nulled out. So, but it definitely has its uses. If you're someone that does find your strategic reserving a fair amount of your units for your particular strategy, certainly consider this one as it could come into play and make the difference for you. So now we're moving into the psychic phase. So the first stratagem here is called Synaptic Domination. So it is a 1 CP stratagem. Use the stratagem in your psychic phase, select one friendly Leviathan Synapse unit from your army, and then select one friendly Leviathan non-Synapse unit from your army until the start of your next psychic phase. When that, while that Synapse unit is on the battlefield, the non-Synapse unit always counts as being within range of the Synapse unit for the purposes of Synapse and instinctive behavior. So this one's kind of effective. As you can see here, I'm just showing the Hive Tyrant who's far away from some Turbulence on an objective. Keeping those guys in Synapse will ensure that they're not going to run away, lose the objective. It isn't too expensive. It's only 1 CP. Personally, this is one that comes into play kind of late game, really ensuring that you have a unit that's not going to be running away and holding an objective down, securing your points in the late game, or preventing your opponent potentially from scoring some points. So definitely has some uses, little situational, but again, good one to have in the back pocket and knowing that you can kind of clutch some moments in the late game. So one more stratagem that we have for the psychic phase is called the Void in the Warp. So it's 1 CP. Use the stratagem in your opponent's psychic phase after a psychic test is passed for an enemy psychic unit and after any Deny the Witch attempt is made, if any. If that enemy psychic unit is within 24 inches of any Leviathan Synapse units from your army, roll 1d6. On a 4-up, that psychic power is denied. So this is very handy to have if you're really looking to attempt deny a psychic action, as well as shutting down a key power that could swing the favor of the game in your opponent's direction. So it's nice too because Leviathan Synapse creatures can shut this down. So if you have a psyker that's sitting back out of range of your denials, positioned nicely, but we do have a Synapse creature that is nearby that isn't a psyker, you can attempt to use this and shut down a power. It is on a 4-up, so it is risky, But I mean, in tight situations where you gotta just go for it and stop a power or stop some points being racked up, it is worth the risk in those moments. And it is only 1 CP, so it's not too cost heavy, so very happy about that. Could be a lot worse. Again, just so many things here that are nice to have in the back pocket and really mess with the opponent's game. All right, folks, so we're into the shooting phase here. So first one up is bioadapted borer grubs. So use the stratagem in your shooting phase when a Leviathan unit from your army is selected to shoot. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack with a flesh borer or flesh borer hive, an unmodified wound roll of 6, the attack inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target in addition to the normal damage, up to a maximum of 6 mortal wounds. And if that unit is a Tyranids, the stratagem costs 2 CP, otherwise it's 1 CP. You can't use this in combination with the Scorch Bug stratagem from the Core Tyranids book on the same unit during the same phase. So you can see I got my little flesh borer dudes here. This one is probably the least used one, I think, from the book. I have only ever used it once. I had a situation where I had 10 of these little guys and I needed to do a single wound to something, and it paid off. Again, I think this is going to be a very situational stratagem. Not a whole lot of people use the Tyranid effects with the flesh borer hive. I know there's some advocates out there for the flesh borer hive, but it's not my personal go-to loadout for the Tyranid effects. But it is available here, so you can pop out some extra mortal wounds. Good chance you're going to be rolling some 6s with the amount of shots coming in from the Tyranid effects. And if you have a huge blob of termagants, you could do it as well, I guess. On a whole, though, I think you'd more often see Devouragons rather than flesh borers. So I think that makes this stratagem a less frequently used one. But again, just like I've said many times here, having these in the back pocket is nothing to snuff at, and it's not taking the place of some other useful stratagems here. It's not like this is the only one we got for the shooting phase that's going to help us. So let's move into the next one, which is a huge buff for the shooting phase as well as the fight phase too. Next up for the shooting phase, as well as moving into the fight phase as well. So this one can be used in both phases. And I think this is one of the best stratagems that we received from the Leviathan supplement. I'll read out what it is and I'll talk about why I think it is one of the best. So it is called Relentless Fury. It costs either 1 or 2 CP. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase or in the fight phase. When you select a Leviathan unit from your army to shoot or fight, until the end of that phase, each time an attack is made by a model in that unit, an unmodified hit roll of a 6 scores 1 additional hit. If that unit currently contains 11 or more models, it scores 2 additional hits instead. And if the unit is a Gene Stealer unit, the stratagem costs 2 CP, otherwise it costs 1 CP. So right off the bat, I mean, getting the ability to do some exploding 6s, that removes the need from the old Symbiostorm from the Cronus Patrol. That was one of the huge benefits of taking that patrol. So Leviathan stands on its own legs here, pumping out just the same amount of shooting potential as the Cronus Patrol that used to exist. So we got right here a whole bunch of prime candidates for the stratagem. A unit of 15 plus Gene Stealers I find is kind of my sweet spot, 15 and up. Just absolute absurd the amount of attacks and auto wounds they can get. It really shines on the Acid Maws, being that you get that extra AP in there, so fantastic. And then you have the Devil Gaunts and just the amount of shots that you can pump out. So you take a unit of at least 20 Devil Gaunts, and it's an absurd amount of fire they can pump out. In addition to getting buffed from Synaptic links, it's a lot of damage. I mean, it's only strength 4, but that's a lot of saves that you have to take. So anything that's tough 7 and under, I know you'll need some 5s to wound there, but I mean, still, it's nothing to snuff at for the volume of fire that can come through. And the obvious winner here is the Hive Guard with the double tap ability, plus all the other buffs like Swarm Leader and Bioweapon Bond, or the Focal Essence, again, just ensuring they do damage. Getting the exploding 6s is huge. So I know there's a lot of other units can really take advantage of Relentless Fury. I mean, even say like a Demicaran getting a lot of attacks, or any Crusher Stampede unit buffed for a bonus attacks through Psychic Powers or Warlord trait. It's a great way just to ensure that you're doing high volume of attacks coming through. So big winner here for the Leviathan supplement, and definitely one of the best stratagems the supplement has to offer. All right, so that is it for the stratagems, at least up to the fight phase. Now we're going to talk about the ones where we're taking casualties. The first up here is called Animated by the Hive Mind. This is a 1 CP stratagem, and you can see I got all the monsters out in front of me. So use this stratagem in any phase when a Leviathan monster from your army is destroyed, excluding Titanic models. If that model has an ability that is triggered on a dice roll upon its destruction, which is death throws, do not make a roll, it's automatically triggered. So a great way if you have a unit that you need to finish off, it has 1 or 2 wounds left, and you really just need to ensure they die, you got an extra CP to do it. Having your model taken out just ensures a little bit of extra damage as well. So tossing that in combination with a few of the other stratagems that we have, allowing things to fight back, fight on their death, we have a few of those. It's a great way to just pump out a little bit of extra damage again if you really need to finish something off. So it's nice to have that available, and maybe even if your opponent has something weak charging into a monster, it might make them think a little bit about launching in, because there's the potential that a weak character or a unit coming in could get finished off as well. So kind of cool again to have that. It's kind of a standard as well. A lot of the other armies have it, so it's great to see we're following suit in that regard, but also still having so much unique flavor given to us with our stratagems and other abilities. And finally, to the last stratagem of the book, it's called Control of the Swarm. It's a 1 CP stratagem. Use this stratagem if a Leviathan warlord from your army is destroyed. You can immediately select another Leviathan Synapse character model from your army that does not have a warlord trait, and then select a warlord trait that no model in your army has, and it must be a warlord trait that a model you just selected can have. Until the end of the battle, that model gains the warlord trait, and for all rules purposes now counts as your warlord. Now here's the big thing. If any mission objective, secondary objective, tactical objective, or agenda rules are triggered when your original warlord is destroyed, those rules are not triggered until your new warlord is destroyed. So very cool there. It's a great way to prevent some extra points coming through for whatever playstyle you're playing, be it Crusade or match play. And it's a nice way again. So if you somehow make a placement error, say lose one of your smaller guys here, tossing a swarm commander, and you really need that to go off, you have a great opportunity for another one of your characters to receive that benefit, and or just switch up to a different warlord trait that may be a little bit situational that you could need. So nice to have that flexibility, and it is great where it is only 1 CP, so not bad at all. That is it for all these stratagems. So tons of effective ones. Definitely a huge win for Tyranids, adding so much flavor and so much life back into the faction here. Again, the only downside, as I mentioned at the start of this section of the video, is that it's locked into Leviathan, but it gives me so much hope that whenever a supplement comes out for another Hive Fleet, or just generally in our Tyranid Codex whenever it arrives, many of these are going to be carried over, or a similar version for other Hive Fleets in their own particular flavor. So very cool to see. Feels great for a Tyranid player after quite a long time of not having anything new. It breathes a lot of life and keeps us very relevant in the game today, be it in matched or casual play as well. So very, very awesome to see. So that's it for the Leviathan supplement. We're going to move in the final part of this video, which is just going to cover Tyranid's appendix. Not a ton of details really in there to go through, but just a few things I want to mention just so everyone knows the full contents for Tyranids in this book. All right, so lastly, the final stratagem we have in here is called Control of the Swarm. So use this stratagem if a Leviathan warlord from your army is destroyed. You can immediately select another Leviathan Synapse character model from your army that does not have a warlord trait, then select a warlord trait that no model in your army has. Until the end of the battle, that model gains the warlord trait, and for all the rules purposes now it counts as your warlord. Now the kicker with this one is if any mission objective, secondary objective, tactical objective, or agenda rules are triggered when your original warlord is destroyed, these rules are not triggered until the new warlord is destroyed. So it's a great way to deny a few points here, protect your warlord, and keep them alive. So very cool that we have this option depending on the mission and what you're playing, your warlord. Losing them, especially if you got, like, say, a warlord tyrant launching forward, you can kind of play a little aggressive with them, take advantage of the warlord traits, again, such as Crusher Stampede, warlord traits, and then have a guy in the back ready to take over the role and not lose any points there. So very cool to have this one. Again, it's just a utility stratagem in the back. And that's it, honestly, for all of the Leviathan. So tons of new tricks, techniques, and we're going to move into the appendix section of the Octarius book, which covers the Blood of Baal book, and I'll just talk about that here briefly. All right, everyone, so the final section for this video is going to be just a short little talk about the Appendix Tyranids. So all this section is just a consolidation of the Psychic Awakening Blood of Baal book, reprinted here with one minor update, which we'll cover in a second. So it just covers everything that the book had: the High Fleet Psychic powers, the bio artifacts, the adaptive physiology section, and the High Fleet adaptations for custom fleets, as well as the new stratagems that were added there. Now, quickly talking about the one update that it happened, the reason I got the old Exocrine Hive Guard and Neurothrope here is Symbiostorm has been updated, so it is unmodified 6s now. So unfortunately for you Chronos fans out there, the Exocrine in particular, getting those exploding 5+s was awesome. I'm glad I got to experience it. Unfortunately, if you're watching this, it was a glorious day having exploding 5s on the Exocrine, tons of hits coming through. But aside from that, that's pretty much it for the Octarius book. I hope this video was helpful for you. I gave you a nice overlook. It's a few combinations. If you're new to Tyranids, it let you know the contents of the book, as well as some strategies that might get you started, or if even some people have been playing Tyranids, open up some discussion for existing combos that you may have not thought about, or if there's a combo in particular that I've missed that you have discovered and used yourself, please leave a comment below. I'm always open to discussion. I'm no professional, no absolute expert on Tyranids. I have been playing the faction for a long time, so I do have a good understanding of how they work, but I generally just enjoy discussion with them and talking with fellow Tyranid players as well, just to help our collective hive mind grow and improve how we play the faction. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Again, I'm sorry it took so long for this video. It's long overdue, but again, getting to talk about Crusher Stampede as well in there, and the potential of the GT 2022 book coming out soon too. It's a great way to have this video be a little bit more relevant, and again, help newer players that are going to be looking to secure this book and start their Tyranid journey, potentially to Leviathan, or maybe not. I highly recommend Leviathan is the way to go right now, definitely. But again, Crusher Stampede on a whole does breathe a little bit of life into some of the other high fleets. And that'll be the next Tyranid Tactica video where we talk about the Crusher Stampede and go over those rules. But yeah, that's it. So please leave a comment if you enjoyed the video and found it useful. It greatly supports the channel. Subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for all your support. Big shout out to our patrons, Teos and Brian. I am currently calculating how much we are going to need to get a basic live stream set up. The folks at Wrath Rage Tabletop Gamer are going to assist me in just kind of guiding me through the process. They run a fantastic stream. It's so inspirational for what they put together, and has really made me want to launch forward into that world. And it's a great way to just connect with other wargamers as well. And I think that's what has me most excited about it, is to present very exciting battles, again, for Tyranid fans, as well as just give me a chance to connect with other gamers. And yeah, so that's it. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you want to become a patron and gain some cool bonuses on the channel, some shoutouts in our videos, and unique features, definitely check that link in the video description below. All the support there is going to go towards improving the quality of the battle reports and the content that you see. So thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you in the next Tyranid Tactica video.